My parents gave my twin sister a luxury trip for our birthday, but handed me a worn-out postcard. Mom laughed. "This is enough for you." My sister smirked. "Just pretend you're traveling." I smiled and revealed my gift to them. Mom trembled. "No, this can't be." My parents collapsed in despair. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Greenbrook, North Carolina, surrounded by trees, Olivia Grant gazed out the window of her apartment at the landscape illuminated by the morning sun. Today was her birthday, which she shared with her twin sister Vanessa. Looking at the date circled in red on her calendar, Olivia let out a deep sigh. After finishing her usual shift at the library, Olivia began preparing for her evening plans. She chose a simple navy dress and fixed her hair. Her reflection in the mirror contrasted with her sister Vanessa. Though they were twins, their personalities and lifestyles were as different as day and night. Olivia had worked as a librarian at the local library for 15 years. She found comfort in the quiet environment surrounded by books, and took pride in her work opening the doors of knowledge to visitors. The salary wasn't high, but it was enough for her simple, modest lifestyle. Her apartment was small, but it was a peaceful space, with bookshelves covering entire walls and plants quietly growing by the windows. Meanwhile, Vanessa worked as a sales associate at an upscale boutique downtown. She enjoyed being surrounded by luxury brands and living a flashy lifestyle. Her apartment was modern and spacious, filled with perfect Instagram-worthy interiors. "Olivia, it's at 7 tonight. Don't be late," came her mother Eleanor's voice over the phone, with the usual hint of irritation. "I know. The Blue Ocean restaurant as usual, right?" "Yes," Vanessa made the reservation. "That girl seems to have prepared a wonderful surprise." Her mother's voice suddenly brightened. When she mentioned Vanessa's name, her voice always took on a special tone. "I'll be there on time." Olivia hung up and turned back to the mirror. Since childhood, Vanessa had always been the center of her family. For her parents, Eleanor and Walter Grant, Vanessa was their pride and joy, the shining star of the family. Even when Olivia achieved excellent grades in middle school, it was Vanessa's cheerleading activities that dominated family conversations. On the day Olivia won a literary award in college, the dinner table was buzzing with talk about Vanessa's participation in a fashion show. Even birthday presents showed the difference clearly. Vanessa received luxury brand bags and jewelry, while Olivia got used books and handmade scarves. "You prefer simple things, don't you?" her mother would say. But the truth was that investing in Olivia was considered a waste by her parents. "Vanessa is our sun, and you are the moon," her mother Eleanor's words echoed in her head. Though it sounded like a compliment on the surface, it actually meant she was a shadow. Even in family photos, Olivia stood at the edge while Vanessa and her parents occupied the center. Olivia's gaze fell on a small frame on her dresser, a photo with her grandmother Dorothy. She was the only person who truly understood and appreciated Olivia's worth. "The time will come when your true worth is recognized, Olivia," her grandmother would often say, gently patting Olivia's shoulder. Grandmother Dorothy, who passed away 5 years ago, spent her final days in Olivia's apartment. While her parents and Vanessa rarely visited, citing their busy schedules, Olivia held her grandmother's hand every day and read stories to her. "Olivia, I'm leaving something special for you," her grandmother said on her deathbed, entrusting Olivia with a small wooden box. "Open this when the right time comes. When you need it, your heart will tell you." That wooden box was still carefully kept in the back of Olivia's closet. Occasionally she felt the urge to open it, but remembering her grandmother's words, she waited for the right time. Spread out on the bed was a newspaper with an article about her father Walter's company's financial decline. His construction company had been struggling for the past 3 years, and recently had begun laying off employees. Olivia knew her parents were facing reduced pensions and economic hardship. Nevertheless, her parents continued to indulge Vanessa's extravagant spending habits and prioritize her demands. Last month they paid for Vanessa's car repairs, while turning down Olivia's modest request for help with apartment maintenance, saying, "We're tight right now." Olivia picked up her handbag and checked for her keys. The evening light streaming through the window painted the room in a warm orange glow. Before heading out to the birthday dinner, she paused, opened her closet, and reached for her grandmother's wooden box, but stopped midway. "Not yet," she whispered, and left the apartment. Having lived as the second fiddle in her family, she would once again attend a family dinner with mixed emotions, still wearing her usual smile. Standing at the entrance of the restaurant, Olivia took a deep breath. This was one of the city's finest restaurants, normally beyond her monthly salary's reach. After checking her reflection in the glass door, and giving her shoulders a slight shake, she walked in. "You have a reservation under Grant. This way, please." The hostess guided her. Olivia walked toward a table at the back of the restaurant, where her parents and Vanessa were already seated, chatting with champagne glasses in hand. Vanessa wore a shimmering gold dress with a new necklace gleaming at her throat. In contrast, Olivia's navy dress looked plain. "Finally, you're here." Her mother Eleanor's voice carried a slight tone of reproach. Looking at the clock, it was 3 minutes before the scheduled time. "I'm not late." But everyone else is already here. Now, sit down. Olivia silently took her seat. Appetizers were already laid out on the table, and wine had been poured. Her father Walter finally looked up, as if just noticing her. Olivia. Happy birthday. Thank you, Dad. The conversation naturally flowed to Vanessa's recent happenings, stories about celebrities she had served, the splendor of the beach resort she visited on vacation, and her newly purchased branded bag. Her parents listened attentively, asked questions, and nodded with smiles. When Olivia tried to talk about events at the library or the success of a reading group she had organized, her mother merely said, "Oh, that's nice," while already turning toward Vanessa. After the main course, as dessert time arrived, Walter pulled an envelope from his pocket. "Now, time for birthday presents," he said with a broad smile, handing the envelope to Vanessa. "First, for the son of our family." Vanessa excitedly opened the envelope and read the paper inside. Her face lit up. A 1-week trip to an oceanfront resort in Miami. "Really?" She cheered and hugged her parents. "You've worked hard, so this is your reward," her mother said. "That resort is where celebrities stay. The spa and pool are amazing." Our financial situation, Olivia thought. Despite her father's struggling company and her parents' reduced pensions, they were giving Vanessa an expensive resort trip. She said nothing but was calculating in her mind. That resort would cost the equivalent of 3 months of her salary. Now, for Olivia, Eleanor took out a small envelope from her handbag. Compared to Vanessa's envelope, it was clearly lighter and thinner. Her mother handed it to Olivia with an exaggerated smile. "This should be enough for you." Olivia quietly opened the envelope. Inside was a single old postcard of the Grand Canyon. The edges were slightly bent, and the date on the back showed it was over 10 years old. "This is you're a library person. Use your imagination," her mother said. "Look at the postcard and pretend you're actually there, can't you?" Walter softly laughed in agreement. "You can travel through books. You're a bookworm after all." Olivia remained silent, staring at the postcard. A waiter passing by frowned at the scene. The family's unfairness was apparently obvious to him. "Hey, isn't that postcard the one I got as a teenager?" Vanessa said. "I was going to throw it away since I didn't need it anymore, but now it's become a present for Olivia." She giggled and looked down at Olivia. "Why don't you enjoy the travel feeling with that postcard? Seeing the real thing wouldn't suit you anyway. You've always lived in the world of books, haven't you?" Olivia endured the humiliation in silence. For 37 years she had grown accustomed to such treatment. Since her grandmother's death, no one truly understood her. But today, something was different. The moment she took the postcard, something inside her made a decision. "Thank you," she said quietly. "What's this?" Suddenly being polite, her mother mocked. "Usually you'd look dissatisfied." "I'm not dissatisfied?" Olivia smiled. "Actually, I have birthday presents for all of you too." Everyone looked at her in surprise. It was unusual for her to prepare presents. Normally she would give handmade cards or inexpensive books at most. "Presents? From you?" Vanessa scoffed. "You can't buy much with a librarian's salary, can you?" Olivia took out a small wooden box from her bag. It was what her grandmother Dorothy had left her. "This is what grandmother left me. She told me to open it today." "Dorothy?" Eleanor said with disinterest. "What about her? Grandmother told me to open it when the right time came," Olivia continued calmly. "And today, on our birthday, I felt it was time to open this box." Her parents and Vanessa watched with mixed expressions of contempt and curiosity. For them, the box probably contained old jewelry, or at most a small savings passbook. However, there was a strength in Olivia's expression that had never been there before. She placed her hand on the wooden box and slowly opened the lid. The polished grain reflected the soft lighting, and the sound of the box opening seemed to drown out the surrounding conversations and clinking of dishes. Inside was a yellowed envelope and a small brass key. Olivia carefully took out the envelope and opened it. It was a letter in her grandmother Dorothy's handwriting. "Dear Olivia," she began reading quietly. "If you are reading this letter, it means I am no longer in this world, and you are standing at an important crossroads in your life." Olivia closed her eyes for a moment. It was as if she could hear her grandmother's voice echoing in her head. "True wealth lies within your heart. However, sometimes external wealth is also necessary, especially if it is used for the right purpose." Eleanor interrupted impatiently. "What does it say? Did she leave you an inheritance?" Ignoring her, Olivia continued reading. "This key will open the door to your future. Only you know how to use it." "What kind of key is it?" Vanessa leaned forward to ask. A sudden light of desire appeared in her eyes. "There is something this key opens," Olivia said quietly. "I want to show you all something. Would you come to my apartment, now?" Walter frowned. "It's late. Why not tomorrow?" "No, today would be best." Olivia's voice was soft but unusually firm. "Tonight is our birthday. Grandmother also said I should open this box today." Though her parents and Vanessa looked displeased, they eventually agreed to leave the restaurant and head to Olivia's apartment. Perhaps they thought that grandmother had left something valuable. It had been at least 2 years since Olivia's parents and Vanessa last visited her apartment. Entering the small living room, the family looked around uncomfortably. "Please sit down," Olivia said politely, and headed toward the kitchen. She removed part of the floorboard, revealing a small safe that had been hidden. "What's in there?" Vanessa asked suspiciously. Olivia took out her grandmother's key and inserted it into the safe. With a click, the lid opened. Inside was an old leather binder and another envelope. "Grandmother told me to do the same thing every week," Olivia began to explain. Opening the binder revealed dozens of neatly arranged old lottery tickets. "Buy lottery tickets with the same numbers every week." "Lottery?" Walter snorted. "I never knew Dorothy gambled." "What a waste," Eleanor scoffed. "As if lottery tickets ever win." "Grandmother left me specific instructions," Olivia continued. "Use this combination of numbers and purchase them every week without fail. And what?" Vanessa urged. "And for 5 years since grandmother's death, I've been doing exactly that." "For 5 years?" Walter said incredulously. "If you had that much money, you could have made smarter investments." Olivia smiled quietly. Grandmother was a wise woman. She took out the final envelope from the safe. It was new and bore an official seal. "Last week," Olivia said quietly, opening the envelope. "As usual, I bought the lottery ticket and checked the results as usual." And she pulled out the paper and showed it to her family. It was an official lottery winning certificate. At the top it stated, "Winning amount, $350 million I won last week. The procedures have already been completed." The room fell into complete silence. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Her hands began to tremble as she stared at the paper in disbelief. "You're joking," she stammered. Walter sank deep into his chair, turning pale. "Is it real?" "Yes, it's real," Olivia replied calmly. "I chose the lump sum payment, so it comes to about $210 million after taxes." $210? Vanessa was at a loss for words. Her eyes were fixed on the winning certificate, and her breathing became shallow. Her parents were too stunned to speak, just sitting there in shock. Their hearts couldn't process the fact that the daughter they had long undervalued and treated as second best had suddenly acquired immense wealth. "But we're family," Vanessa suddenly exclaimed. There was an unprecedented sweetness in her voice. "We're sisters, so we'll share it, right? Half and half would be fair, wouldn't it?" Olivia maintained her gentle smile and shook her head. "I've already decided how to use the money." "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked weakly. "We're your parents. You have an obligation to help us." "Obligation?" For the first time, Olivia's voice took on a cold edge. "For 37 years, I've been second in your family. If Vanessa was the sun, I was the moon. Always a shadow." "That's not true." Eleanor desperately denied. "We loved you too. It's just that Vanessa was special." "Special?" Olivia interrupted. "Tonight's presents tell the whole story. A luxurious trip for Vanessa, an old postcard for me." "That was a joke," her mother said in a trembling voice. "A joke?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but they never fell. Every Christmas, birthday, graduation, it was always the same. Walter held his head in his hands. "We were wrong, please forgive us." "Only now?" Olivia quietly asked. "Because I've come into a large sum of money?" A heavy silence descended upon the room. Her parents stared at the floor, unable to answer. Their guilt and regret weighed heavily in the air. Vanessa had completely changed her attitude. She stood up from her chair and approached Olivia. "Sister, we're sisters, aren't we?" she said in a sweet voice. "I may have said terrible things to you, but that was childhood foolishness. It will be different from now on." Olivia looked straight into Vanessa's eyes. She could see that there was no genuine remorse there, only desire. "Vanessa, what did you say today at the restaurant?" Olivia quietly asked. "Why don't you enjoy the travel feeling with that postcard? Seeing the real thing wouldn't suit you." "That's what you said, right?" Vanessa was at a loss for words. Her own words from just hours ago were now piercing her heart. "Let's talk about how the money will be used," Olivia said matter-of-factly. "But that's for another day. It's getting late tonight." "Wait!" Vanessa cried out anxiously, but Olivia had already started walking toward the door. "Let's meet in a week with lawyers and financial advisors. I'll tell you my decision then." Her parents and Vanessa stood up with dazed expressions. Their steps were heavy, as if they were sleepwalking. While heading toward the door, Eleanor kept looking back, regarding Olivia with a pleading expression she had never shown before. As the door closed, Olivia let out a deep sigh. She picked up her grandmother's photo and gazed at her gentle smile. "Grandmother, you knew, didn't you?" she whispered. "That someday, this day would come." 1 week later, Olivia's apartment had been transformed into an orderly space. Her living room, normally filled with stacks of books and plants, now had a large conference table set up. The afternoon light streaming through the windows gave the room a solemn atmosphere. On one side of the table sat Olivia with her lawyer, Clive Martin, and financial advisor, Sarah Chin. Across from them, her parents Eleanor and Walter and Vanessa were seated with anxious expressions. "Let's begin on time," Clive said in a deep voice. He was a composed man in his mid-50s, dressed in an elegant gray suit. "Ms. Olivia Grant has granted me full authority regarding her asset management. Today, we will explain the plan." Over the past week, a storm had raged through the Grant family. After Olivia's win, her parents had called her multiple times, sometimes tearfully begging her to help the family. Vanessa had begun referring to Olivia as her dear sister on social media, and suddenly posting nostalgic stories from the past. Furthermore, Olivia knew they had consulted a local lawyer to investigate their rights as family. "First of all," Clive continued, looking through the documents, "at Ms. Olivia's request, the contents of this meeting will be recorded and preserved as a legal record. Please acknowledge this." Her parents and Vanessa exchanged anxious glances but nodded silently. "Now, Ms. Olivia, would you like to speak?" Olivia stood up quietly. She was dressed slightly more formally than usual, but without extravagance, wearing a simple black pantsuit. "For many years I was unloved and unvalued in this family," she began speaking quietly but with a firm voice. "Birthdays, Christmases, graduations, at every important milestone, I was in Vanessa's shadow." "Olivia," that's her mother began, but fell silent under Clive's stern gaze. "But grandmother was different," Olivia continued. "Grandmother Dorothy recognized my worth and believed in my strength. She kept telling me, 'The time will come when your true worth is recognized.'" Olivia took a small breath and paused briefly. "I struggled with what to do with this money. I could have sought revenge. I could have completely cut you off and ended our relationship." Her parents' faces turned pale. Vanessa bit her lip. "But grandmother also taught me that hatred corrupts the heart. Her final gift wasn't just money, but giving me the power to choose." "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked in a small voice. Olivia gave a nod to Sarah, who operated her tablet, displaying charts on a screen in the corner of the room. "I will now tell you my decision," Olivia said calmly. "Father, all the debts of your company will be paid off. Additionally, $5 million will be provided as funds to rebuild the company." Walter's eyes widened. "This funding will be managed as a special trust fund and can only be used for legitimate business expenses. Strict conditions have been set to prevent wasteful spending or speculative investments." "Olivia," Walter choked up, "for my parents I will provide sufficient funds for your retirement. This includes paying off your mortgage, covering medical expenses, and providing an adequate pension," Olivia continued. "However, this too will be managed as a trust fund, provided in the form of regular payments. You cannot receive it as a lump sum." Eleanor took out a handkerchief and pressed it to her eyes. Her shoulders trembled slightly. "And Vanessa?" Vanessa leaned forward. Her eyes held a mix of expectation and anxiety. "I will set up a conditional trust fund for you," Olivia said in a stern tone. "First, all your debts will be paid off. I investigated your credit card statements. The amount was more than I imagined." Vanessa blushed. Her spending habits had been a secret even within the family. "After that, you will receive a fixed monthly amount. However, there are conditions. First, you must receive counseling on money management. And second, you must donate a portion of your salary to charity." "Charity?" Vanessa repeated in surprise. "Yes. Learn to work for others," Olivia said quietly. "If there is proof of that, the trust fund payments will continue." Silence filled the room. Olivia's family was speechless. They had feared being completely cut off, but were overwhelmed by unexpected generosity. At the same time, they were surprised by the strictness of the conditions. "Does my decision have legal binding power?" Olivia asked Clive. "Yes," he nodded. "Everything has been legally prepared and signed. Changes are impossible." "Why?" Eleanor suddenly raised her voice. "Why are you doing this? Are you punishing us?" Olivia showed a pained expression for the first time. "What I wanted wasn't money, but love." Her voice clearly struggled to contain her emotions. "But I'm no longer seeking that. This is my way of giving back, and freeing my own heart." She took a deep breath and continued. "I will use most of this money to establish a foundation to support underprivileged children and those who have suffered abuse. I want to create a world where everyone feels they are valuable." With those words, the atmosphere in the room changed. Real tears began to flow from Eleanor's eyes. They weren't tears of self-pity, but of deep regret. "We were wrong," Walter said in a low voice. "Olivia, we did terrible things to you. The past cannot be changed," Olivia said quietly. "But the future is different." Vanessa sat silently, but there was something new in her expression. It wasn't envy or greed, but respect she felt for the first time. She gazed at her sister and saw not that a moon she had looked down on for years, but a sun that had actually been shining all along. "This concludes the meeting," Clive said, closing the documents. As the family headed toward the door, Olivia called out to them. "The Foundation's activities will begin next week. If you're interested, please come and see." Her voice carried a faint echo of longing that had been suppressed for years. It wasn't a longing for love, but a small yet strong hope for understanding and reconciliation. A year had passed since the opening ceremony of the Olivia Grant Foundation. Olivia, who once worked quietly in the library, had now become a renowned philanthropist featured in the media. The foundation building, constructed in the center of Greenbrook, North Carolina, was made of warm red brick, creating an atmosphere welcoming to everyone. With the motto "For a Valuable Future," the foundation provided protection for abused children, educational support for low-income families, and counseling programs for those with emotional wounds. Olivia's own experiences shaped the core of the foundation's activities. "I want to create a world where everyone feels valued." These words of hers had been featured in national news and touched the hearts of many. She continued to give hope not only through donations, but by interacting with children and sharing her own experiences. Eleanor and Walter Grant watched Olivia's activities from a distance. Initially, they couldn't meet her directly due to shame and regret, but with the passage of time, their hearts began to change. Walter's company was rebuilt, and he significantly changed his attitude toward employees. Eleanor began volunteering at the local senior center, learning for the first time to devote time to others. And Vanessa. Her transformation was the most remarkable. The volunteer work she reluctantly began to meet the requirements of the Conditional Trust Fund had now become an important part of her life. She started working at Olivia's foundation, particularly excelling as a mentor for young people who felt like shadows. She still liked luxury brand clothes, but her eyes now held a depth that wasn't there before. 2 weeks before Christmas, Olivia made an unexpected decision. She invited her parents and Vanessa to the foundation's annual Christmas event. The hall was decorated with a large Christmas tree and bustling with children supported by the foundation and their families. "Thank you for coming." Olivia greeted her parents and Vanessa, who stood nervously at the entrance. There was no coldness in her voice, only a quiet strength. "We can't change the past, but we can create the future." At her words, Eleanor's eyes welled with tears. Walter nodded silently, seeming able to truly see his daughter for the first time. Vanessa stepped forward and gently took her sister's hand. "Thank you for teaching me," she said quietly. Olivia understood the meaning behind those words. That night, the entire family faced each other on equal terms for the first time. Though they hadn't reached complete reconciliation, it was the beginning of a new relationship. Several months later, another birthday arrived. This year's celebration took place not at a fancy restaurant or the parents' home, but in the courtyard of the foundation. Simple tables were arranged, and a heartwarming party was held with the foundation's children. Vanessa, now an important member of the foundation, had launched her own program. "What I learned from my sister is that the richness of the heart is more important than outward flashiness," she said in her speech, smiling at the gathered people. Her former arrogance had receded, replaced by genuine confidence that emanated from her. At the end of the party, Olivia returned to her office alone. Gazing at her grandmother Dorothy's photo, she smiled quietly. "I have found the true wealth you taught me about." The sunset streaming through the window illuminated her figure. Once called the moon, she now shone with her own light. And that light continued to illuminate others as well.